my life took an unexpected and devastating turn because of a lie. It all started when I was 9 years old, and my parents got divorced. It wasn't easy, but I adjusted to the new routine of living with my mom during the week and spending weekends at my dad's house. Things changed drastically when my dad remarried a woman named Gina. At first, I wanted to believe that things would get better. I wanted to be optimistic. My dad seemed happy, and Gina came across as kind and welcoming. But soon, I learned that Gina was far from the person she pretended to be. Slowly, she revealed her true nature, a manipulative and cold-hearted woman who, for reasons I'll never fully understand, decided I was her enemy. Gina made it clear, in ways both subtle and direct, that she didn't like me. At first, it was small things, a disapproving look here, a sarcastic comment there. I remember vividly the first time I felt truly unwelcome in my dad's house. I was about 10 years old, and we were having dinner. I reached for some bread, and Gina's sharp gaze made me freeze. She didn't say anything, but her eyes conveyed everything. "You don't belong here." From that moment, I knew this wasn't going to be easy. Despite her coldness, I still tried to be polite, to earn her approval, but nothing I did ever seemed good enough. What hurt the most was my dad's obliviousness. To him, Gina could do no wrong. He was completely blinded by his love for her and genuinely thought we were getting along fine. He often made comments about how lucky we all were to be together as a family. I wanted to scream every time he said that because it couldn't have been further from the truth. But I stayed quiet, mostly for his sake, and kept hoping that maybe, with time, things would improve. They didn't. By the time I was 14, things had gotten much worse. Gina had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and they were starting to follow in their mother's footsteps. They joined in on the constant teasing and passive-aggressive comments. It was like they took pleasure in making me uncomfortable. They'd mock the way I dressed, the things I liked, and even the way I talked. It wasn't just playful banter, it was targeted cruelty. One summer, my dad took us all on a trip to Greece. What should have been a fun family vacation turned into a nightmare. Gina and her daughters made the entire trip unbearable. Every day, they would make snide remarks or pick fights over the smallest things. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore and snapped back at them. I yelled, finally standing up for myself after years of staying silent. That's when things took a turn for the worse. My dad, who had barely noticed the tension up to that point, suddenly got involved. But instead of defending me or even trying to understand what had led to my outburst, he sided with Gina. I remember standing there, feeling utterly defeated as he scolded me in front of them. In his eyes, I was the problem. I was the one ruining our family dynamic. That moment created a deep rift between us, one that I didn't think would ever heal. By the time I was 16, I had learned to endure Gina's cruelty without reacting. I avoided her and her daughters as much as possible. I had become adept at disappearing into the background whenever they were around, just to avoid conflict. I didn't want to cause any more problems with my dad, even though our relationship was already hanging by a thread. Then came the dinner party, an event that solidified everything I had always feared. I had spent the entire day preparing a special meal for some of my dad's friends. I was proud of what I had accomplished and excited to make a good impression. The dinner went smoothly, or so I thought. I was clearing dishes in the kitchen when I overheard Gina talking to her friends in the other room. She was laughing, saying how much she despised me, how she wished I'd fail at everything in life. Her words were like a dagger to the heart. I stood there, numb, listening as she trashed everything about me. "I can't stand him," she said. "He's just a burden, and I'll be glad when he's finally out of this house for good." She had this way of pretending to be civil in front of my dad, but behind closed doors, she was ruthless. Even after hearing those words, I went back to the dinner, serving food and pretending like everything was fine. What else could I do? I didn't feel like I had anyone on my side. Not even my dad. The turning point came when I turned 21. I was finally starting to feel like an adult, looking forward to the next chapter of my life. My dad invited me over for a talk about his will, which surprised me. I wasn't expecting much, to be honest. I didn't really care about money or possessions. I just wanted to feel like I still had a place in his life. During dinner, he told me he had decided to leave his house to Gina, but he would leave me his retirement account and his prized vintage car. It was a fair arrangement, I thought. But Gina and her daughters didn't agree. Gina's reaction was immediate and vicious. Her eyes darkened, and she didn't even try to hide her rage. Her daughters, just as greedy, backed her up. I didn't know it at the time, but that dinner marked the beginning of my undoing. Not long after that conversation, Gina did something I never could have anticipated. She accused me of trying to assault her. It was a blatant, horrifying lie, designed to turn my dad against me and cut me out of the inheritance entirely. When my dad confronted me about it, I was in shock. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I tried to explain that it wasn't true, that Gina was lying to manipulate him, but he wouldn't listen. He was angry, hurt, and most of all, he believed her. Without giving me a chance to defend myself, he cut me out of his life. Just like that, I lost my father. The man who had raised me, who I had once looked up to, turned his back on me in favor of a woman who had hated me from the beginning. I was devastated. It felt like my entire world was collapsing. I moved in with my mom, but the emotional toll was unbearable. The betrayal from my dad weighed heavily on me, and I fell into a deep depression. I had been falsely accused of something terrible, but worse than the accusation was the fact that my own father believed it. I stopped trusting people, withdrew from my social circles, and struggled to find meaning in anything. Suicidal thoughts crept into my mind more often than I'd like to admit. The only thing that kept me afloat was the unwavering support from my mom and her partner, Mara. Mara, who had entered our lives a few years before, was a quiet but strong presence. She was calm and empathetic, and while she didn't push me to talk about what had happened, she always made it clear that she was there if I needed her. It took time, but with their help, I slowly started to rebuild my life. I found a therapist who helped me unpack the trauma of what I'd been through, and over the years, I started to heal. But the scars remained, and the relationship with my dad? That was beyond repair, or so I thought. 7 years passed before I heard from him again. Out of the blue, he called me, asking to meet. My initial reaction was anger. What right did he have to reach out now, after everything? But curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to see him. When we met, he looked older, more worn down, like the years had weighed heavily on him too. He admitted that Gina had been lying the whole time. She had confessed to fabricating the accusations after being caught cheating on him. Apparently, when the truth came out, Gina's daughters had backed her up in a desperate attempt to cover their tracks. My dad, now alone and filled with regret, wanted to apologize. But it wasn't enough. His words felt hollow. The damage was already done. I listened to his apology, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive him. He had made his choice years ago when he believed Gina's lie over my truth. He had broken my trust, and no amount of regret could fix that. I told him as much and walked away, leaving him to live with the consequences of his actions. After that meeting, my dad's side of the family started pressuring me to forgive him. They said that he was genuinely sorry and that I needed to be the bigger person. But I couldn't. Forgiveness, to me, isn't just about saying, "It's okay." It's about healing a broken relationship, and our relationship was beyond repair. I wasn't going to risk my mental health for the sake of someone else's guilt. Now, I'm focused on building a future that's mine. I've been in therapy for a while, and it's helped me come to terms with the past. I've started letting go of the anger, not for my dad's sake, but for my own. I've also found happiness again. I proposed to Mara, the woman who stood by me through it all, and we're planning to move closer to my mom, where I can finally leave the toxicity of my father's side of the family behind. For the first time in years, I feel hopeful. The past will always be a part of me, but I'm not letting it define my future. My dad can keep his guilt, Gina can keep her lies, and I'll keep moving forward, focusing on the people who truly love and support me. That's all that matters now. Enjoyed the story? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss new content. Share your thoughts and ideas in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think and what you'd like to see next. And if you want to keep watching more videos like this one, just click on the next video. See you there.